July 13, 2024. Former President Donald Trump, a lightning rod of controversy, found himself at the center of a chilling event, an assassination attempt. The news reverberated across the globe, a stark reminder of the fragility of peace in a deeply divided world. As details emerged, the narrative took an unsettling turn, riddled with inconsistencies and secrecy. The FBI, long regarded as a bastion of integrity, found itself ensnared in contradictions, fueling suspicion and deepening distrust in American politics. The incident thrust the nation into uncertainty, with questions swirling about the motives of the would-be assassin and the effectiveness of the Secret Service. In the aftermath of the attempt on Trump's life, the nation held its breath, desperate for reassurance. Instead of clarity, the American people were met with a disquieting silence from the FBI, their pronouncements shrouded in ambiguity.
The FBI is committed to a thorough investigation. We will leave no stone unturned in our pursuit of the truth.
FBI Director Christopher Wray, known for his measured demeanor, found himself at the epicenter of the storm. His initial statements did little to quell the rising tide of doubt. The whispers of doubt began as a low murmur, confined to the fringes of online forums. But as the days turned into weeks, the whispers grew louder, finding a receptive audience among those already disillusioned by the political climate. Central to the controversy was the question, was Donald Trump actually shot during the assassination attempt?
After a thorough investigation, we can confirm that former President Trump was indeed struck by a bullet during the incident.
FBI Deputy Director Paul Abate confirmed that Trump had indeed been struck by a bullet during the ordeal. The weight of Abate's words hung heavy, shattering the fragile facade of uncertainty. The bullet had struck the former president in the ear, a chilling detail that sent shivers down the spines of many. The revelation of Trump's injury injected a new level of urgency into the investigation, transforming it into a full-blown manhunt for those responsible.
There is no doubt within the FBI that former President Trump was shot and wounded during the events of July 13th.
Abate's statement, delivered with the measured cadence of a seasoned law enforcement officer, left no room for misinterpretation.
The FBI reached its conclusion through a meticulous process, citing forensic evidence, eyewitness accounts, and ballistic experts.
Abate's confirmation of Trump's injury sent shockwaves through the political establishment, forcing both allies and adversaries to confront the chilling reality. As the initial shock of Abate's revelation began to subside, the nation's attention turned to the chilling details of the assassination attempt. The investigation, now operating with renewed urgency, began to piece together the movements of the shooter, a lone gunman who had managed to evade detection. The gunman, armed with a high-powered rifle, had fired a total of 8 shots, one of which had found its mark, striking Trump in the ear. The assassination attempt on Donald Trump sent shockwaves through a nation already grappling with deep divisions. The incident served as a stark reminder of the fragility of peace and the ever-present threat of violence in a polarized society. The nation found itself at a crossroads, forced to confront the uncomfortable reality that even a former president was not immune from the threat of violence. While Abate's confirmation brought a sense of grim finality, FBI Director Christopher Wray's prior testimony painted a murkier picture.
The investigation is ongoing. We are still gathering evidence and interviewing witnesses to determine the exact nature of the injuries sustained by former President Trump. He paused before adding, "Whether he was struck by a bullet or shrapnel remains unclear at this time."
This calculated ambiguity fueled speculation and conspiracy, striking a nerve with the American public. Wray's words, delivered with the full weight of his office, carried far beyond the confines of the hearing room. The very notion that the FBI could not definitively state whether a former president had been shot seemed unfathomable to many. The uncertainty played directly into the hands of those who already viewed the FBI with suspicion. Conspiracy theories began to seep into the mainstream, fueled by the lack of clarity from those in positions of authority. Trump's supporters seized upon Wray's ambiguity as evidence of a deliberate attempt to downplay the severity of the attack. As the days turned into weeks, the American public grew increasingly frustrated with the lack of clear and consistent information. The initial shock and horror of the assassination attempt gave way to a growing sense of anger and betrayal. Democrats and Republicans alike expressed their outrage at the FBI's handling of the investigation, demanding transparency and accountability. Lawmakers from both sides grilled Director Wray in hearings, demanding to know why the Bureau couldn't provide a definitive answer about Trump's injuries. The media kept the story alive, scrutinizing every word uttered by FBI officials and highlighting the inconsistencies in their accounts. The FBI's handling of the investigation exposed the deep and corrosive distrust that had come to define American politics. Wray's attempts to balance transparency and the need to protect the integrity of the investigation were met with skepticism and hostility. The FBI, once viewed as an impartial arbiter of justice, now found itself cast as a villain in a partisan drama. The assassination attempt on Donald Trump had become a symbol of a nation teetering on the brink, its institutions under siege, its people divided, and its future uncertain. The simmering discontent with the FBI's contradictory statements reached a boiling point on Capitol Hill.
The American people deserve the truth. And the truth is that the FBI has failed in its most basic duty to provide clear and accurate information about an attack on our very democracy.
House Speaker Mike Johnson, known for his measured demeanor, abandoned any pretense of neutrality, his voice booming with barely contained fury.
Director Wray, your ambiguity is not only unacceptable, it is an insult to the American people and a betrayal of the trust placed in the Bureau.
Senator Lindsey Graham, a staunch Trump ally, echoed Johnson's sentiments, his typically measured tone replaced by a scathing indictment of the FBI's handling of the investigation. Lawmakers demanded a full accounting from the FBI, insisting on a transparent and thorough investigation. The political firestorm ignited by the FBI's conflicting statements exposed the raw nerves of a nation deeply divided. Conservative media outlets seized upon Wray's ambiguity as evidence of a deep state conspiracy. Talk radio airwaves crackled with outrage, with hosts and callers expressing their fury at the perceived betrayal. Liberal commentators voiced their unease with the FBI's handling of the situation, questioning the timing and intent behind Abate's confirmation. The assassination attempt, instead of serving as a rallying cry for unity, had become yet another battleground in the ongoing culture wars threatening to consume America from within. Amidst the political firestorm, Donald Trump responded to the FBI's confirmation with a calculated mix of vindication and restraint. Taking to his preferred platform, he issued a series of pronouncements, each one carefully calibrated to resonate with his base.
So it turns out they were lying all along. The FBI tried to cover up the truth about the attempt on my life.
Trump, while relishing in the vindication, stopped short of calling for retribution. Instead, he portrayed himself as the victim of a politically motivated witch hunt, resonating deeply with his supporters. The assassination attempt on Donald Trump did not occur in a vacuum. It landed squarely on the already deeply fractured ground of Christopher Wray's tenure as FBI director. Since his appointment in 2017, Wray, a man who had dedicated his career to upholding the law, found himself thrust into a political maelstrom, his every move scrutinized, his every word dissected, and his every decision second-guessed. Wray, a Yale Law School graduate with a reputation for integrity and a by-the-book approach to justice, had assumed the helm of the FBI with a mandate to restore public trust in the wake of the tumultuous 2016 election. His predecessor, James Comey, had been fired by Trump under a cloud of controversy, leaving the Bureau reeling and its reputation tarnished. Yet, despite his best efforts to remain above the political fray, Wray found himself drawn inexorably into the vortex of partisan warfare that had come to define the Trump era. His every decision, from the investigations he pursued to the statements he made, was viewed through the lens of political expediency, his motives questioned, and his integrity challenged. The specter of Russian interference in the 2016 election loomed large over Wray's tenure, casting a long shadow over his every move and fueling accusations of bias from both sides of the political aisle. Trump, haunted by the cloud of suspicion surrounding his campaign's contacts with Russia, had repeatedly attacked the FBI's investigation, labeling it a witch hunt and a hoax perpetrated by his political enemies. Wray, caught in the crossfire, found himself walking a tightrope, attempting to maintain the integrity of the Bureau's investigation while navigating the treacherous waters of presidential pressure and partisan politics. He repeatedly defended the FBI's work, asserting that it was conducted without fear or favor, but his words often fell on deaf ears. The investigation, led by Special Counsel Robert Mueller, ultimately concluded that Russia had interfered in the 2016 election in a sweeping and systematic fashion, but found insufficient evidence to establish a criminal conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russia. The report, however, did not exonerate Trump on obstruction of justice, leaving the door open to further investigation and fueling accusations of a cover-up. Section 3. Whispers of the Deep State. The Russian investigation, and the FBI's role in it, provided fertile ground for the growth of a particularly insidious conspiracy theory, the notion of a deep state operating within the government, seeking to undermine Trump and his agenda. This theory, embraced by Trump and his allies, posited that a shadowy cabal of unelected bureaucrats and intelligence officials were working behind the scenes to sabotage the Trump presidency. Wray, labeled as a card-carrying member of this supposed deep state, found himself the target of relentless attacks from Trump and his supporters. He was accused of being part of a coup against the president, of protecting Hillary Clinton and other political enemies of Trump, and of weaponizing the FBI for political purposes. These accusations, while lacking any credible evidence, resonated with a segment of the population that already harbored a deep distrust of government institutions. They fueled a climate of fear and suspicion, making it increasingly difficult for the FBI to carry out its mission and eroding public trust in the very institutions designed to protect them. Section 4. A Director Under Fire. By the time the assassination attempt on Donald Trump occurred, Christopher Wray found himself leading an FBI that was deeply divided, demoralized, and under siege from all sides. He had become a lightning rod for criticism, his every move scrutinized, his every word dissected, and his every decision second-guessed. The conflicting statements surrounding the assassination attempt, whether intentional or not, only served to further damage the FBI's already tarnished reputation. They fueled accusations of incompetence, bias, and even malice, further eroding public trust in the Bureau's ability to investigate and prosecute crimes without fear or favor. Wray, once seen as a beacon of hope for an FBI seeking to restore its reputation, now found himself leading an agency mired in controversy, its credibility shattered, and its future uncertain. The assassination attempt on Donald Trump, rather than uniting the nation in a shared sense of outrage, had only served to deepen the divisions that threatened to tear America apart. Section 1. The Hunter in the Shadows. As the investigation into the assassination attempt on Donald Trump intensified, the FBI shifted its focus from the halls of power to the dark corners of the internet, where the would-be assassin had meticulously planned his attack. The shooter, a solitary figure consumed by rage and radicalized online, had left behind a digital trail that painted a chilling portrait of a mind consumed by violence. The gunman, whose name remained a closely guarded secret, had spent months immersing himself in a toxic online ecosystem, frequenting extremist forums and consuming propaganda that glorified violence against perceived enemies of the state. He had become fixated on Trump, viewing the former president as a tyrant who needed to be eliminated for the good of the nation. The shooter's online activity revealed a disturbing obsession with past acts of political violence. particularly the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. He had devoured books, articles, and documentaries about the JFK assassination, poring over the details with a chilling intensity, as if searching for inspiration or seeking to emulate the infamous act. The parallels between the planned attack on Trump and the assassination of JFK sent chills down the spines of investigators. The shooter, it seemed, had meticulously studied the details of that fateful day in Dallas, drawing inspiration from Lee Harvey Oswald's actions and incorporating elements of the JFK assassination into his own twisted plan. Like Oswald, the Trump shooter had chosen a location with a clear line of sight to his target, positioning himself in a multi-story building overlooking the route Trump was scheduled to take. He had also acquired a high-powered rifle, similar to the one used to kill Kennedy, and had practiced his marksmanship extensively, determined to make his shots count. The eerie similarities between the two events did not end there. The Trump shooter had also explored the use of a drone to monitor the movements of his target, a tactic that, while not employed by Oswald, echoed the technological advancements that had occurred in the decades since the JFK assassination. Section 3: An Arsenal of Hate. The investigation into the assassination attempt revealed that the shooter had amassed a disturbing arsenal of weapons and explosives, transforming his home into a veritable bomb-making factory. The discovery sent shockwaves through law enforcement, raising alarming questions about the ease with which individuals could obtain the tools of mass destruction. In addition to the high-powered rifle used in the attack, investigators discovered a cache of handguns, assault rifles, and thousands of rounds of ammunition. They also found bomb-making materials, including chemicals, timers, and detonators, suggesting that the shooter had been planning a much larger and more deadly attack. The shooter's online activity provided further insights into his deadly intentions. He had visited websites that provided instructions on building improvised explosive devices, and had even experimented with creating small-scale explosives in his backyard, leaving behind a trail of scorched earth and shattered glass. Section 4: The Iranian Nexus. As the FBI delved deeper into the shooter's background and motivations, they uncovered a disturbing connection to a foreign power, Iran. The discovery sent shockwaves through the intelligence community, raising the specter of international terrorism and adding a geopolitical dimension to the already complex investigation. The shooter, it turned out, had been in contact with individuals linked to the Iranian government, communicating with them through encrypted messaging apps and online forums. While the exact nature of these communications remained unclear, investigators believed that the shooter may have received financial or logistical support from Iranian agents. The Iranian connection raised the stakes of the investigation significantly, transforming it from a domestic terrorism case into a matter of national security. The possibility that a foreign government may have played a role in an attempt to assassinate a former U.S. president sent shockwaves through the corridors of power, prompting calls for a swift and decisive response. Section 1: A Nation Adrift. The attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump, a chilling echo of America's violent past, laid bare the deep fissures and simmering tensions that course through the nation's veins. The incident, far from uniting a fractured populace in shared outrage, instead served as a grim testament to the erosion of trust, the weaponization of misinformation, and the fragility of democratic norms. The FBI, once revered as a symbol of American justice and an impartial arbiter of truth, found itself ensnared in a web of its own making. The conflicting statements, whether a product of incompetence, political maneuvering, or a toxic combination of both, only served to deepen the chasm of suspicion and distrust that had come to define the relationship between the American people and their institutions. The investigation, despite uncovering a trove of disturbing details about the shooter's motivations and preparations, ultimately failed to provide the clarity and closure that the nation so desperately craved. The American people, bombarded with a cacophony of competing narratives and partisan spin, were left to grapple with more questions than answers, their faith in the institutions designed to protect them shaken to its core. Section 2. The Unfinished Reckoning. The nation found itself adrift, grappling with the unsettling realization that the forces of division had unleashed a wave of violence. Words have consequences, and hate speech can incite violence. The political fallout was swift and predictable. Trump and his allies used the incident to solidify their grip on power. The left condemned the violence and expressed concern over right-wing extremism. The assassination attempt pushed the nation further down the path of division and distrust. The battle for the soul of America was far from over.